Chapter 4 of the Book of Boba Fett was a great episode in my opinion, and ended with a huge tease for the rest of the season, as well as some connection to the greater Star Wars universe. In the final minutes of the episode, with Boba Fett and Fennec Shand preparing for war with the Pyke Syndicate, Fennec asks Boba how many credits he has in reserve, and Boba states that credits are not his problem, and that it's muscle. And then Fennec replies with,
"Credits can buy muscle, if you know where to look."
And as you hear the Mando music space flutes chime in, I think that all but guarantees we will be getting Din Djarin at some point in time in the upcoming episodes to come help Boba Fett and Fennec Shand out. Now, when Boba Fett he's looking for muscle, I believe he would be looking for a little bit more than just Black Chrysanthemum and Din Djarin. So, let's hack into Fennec Shand's and Boba Fett's contact list and let's see who is most likely to come help them out with this war with the Pikes. Alright, so we know that Mando is coming, so let's start there. Is Mando going to be coming with any friends that we've seen from his series? When we last find Mando, he's on the bridge of Moff Gideon's light cruiser. There is obviously some tension going on with the Darksaber, and he has no ship of his own. So Mando is in a spot with a lot of questions to resolve. A lot of this drama and storylines is going to be key plot points throughout Season 3 of The Mandalorian. So I really don't think they're going to reveal the answer to some of these questions in the Book of Boba just to have Mando come in maybe a cameo role or maybe it's more significant. But I don't think it's going to tell us a whole lot about Season 3 of The Mandalorian. So saying that, I don't think we're going to see Bo-Katan or any other Mandalorian show up with Mando, strictly because I think that's going to be some of the main plot points for Mando Season 3. And if they're playing nice or the Darksabers change hands, obviously that's going to remove a lot of drama. So I think we could safely remove them as an option for showing up in the Book of Boba. Next up, we have Greef Karga, and ever since he became the Magistrate of Navarro, he hasn't really left even when Mando's needed help. So I think maybe they could use him, say, hey, we're looking for bounty hunters or mercenaries, assassins, whatever it may be. Is there anyone from the guild you can send? We can pay. That would be his role, very minor like that. You're not going to see him showing up on Tatooine anytime. However, I do have two potential candidates from the Mandalorian series who can show up in this show. The first one being Mayfeld. So Mayfeld obviously is for hire. He's recently worked with both Boba and Din Djarin, so there is that connection there. And his episode in Season 2 of The Mandalorian was flat out fantastic, and I'm sure Disney would love bringing Bill Burr back for another crack at it. And the second candidate for the Mandalorian season would be Cobb Vanth. So Cobb Vanth is already on Tatooine, and Cobb Vanth would have a significant interest in potentially stopping the Pikes and the spice running, as he is the sheriff of Mos Pelgo. So I could definitely see Cobb Vanth showing up. It's a bit of a bummer he doesn't have Mandalorian armor or something significant about him to help contribute to the fight. But from a narrative standpoint, he really fits the bill as a character who would have a vested interest in this fight and would be readily available to fight.
I hope our paths cross again.
As do I.
So let's move on to other bounty hunters we have encountered throughout the Clone Wars, the comics, and other Star Wars properties that have had, either have worked with Boba, worked for Boba, mentored Boba, or have had run-ins with Boba Fett and Fennec Shand to that degree. So I think a good place to start would be looking at the members of Crate's Claw, which was Boba Fett's Tatooine-based syndicate. And among the members, and the one who probably has the longest history with Boss, because even before this as a mentor and afterwards, would be Boss.
You got a problem with Boba? You got a problem with me?
And I think Bosk has the highest chances of all the bounty hunters to show up in these final episodes. One of the reasons was he's always appeared to be the closest to Boba throughout all the Star Wars materials, and one of the crime families in Mos Espa are Trandoshans, so it wouldn't be too far of a stretch for Bosk to have some sort of relationship with them. So he may have a vested interest to come help out his old friend Boba Fett, make some money, and potentially help out some other members of his species. And as a side note, they already have Trandoshans on the show, so it wouldn't be very hard to slap a yellow flight suit on one of them to make Bosk. And if we got to see the Hound's tooth in live action, that would definitely be a cool moment for ship nerds like myself. So outside of Bosk, obviously Dengar could have an opportunity here. Forlom, Zuckuss, IG-88, the Empire Strikes Back crew. The one thing I will say with the recent comic, The War of the Bounty Hunters, all these people who had potentially once good working relationships all kind of just fought each other and blew the crap out of each other, to the point where Boba even blew off both of Bosk's legs. So that's thrown a little bit of a wrench into trying to predict which bounty hunters are more likely to work with each other. But at the end of the day, bounty hunting is just a job. It's a profession. So if there's no hard feelings between them, they could also work together once again. So I don't know how much that comic may impact on who actually shows up or not. So saying that, I really don't believe Forlom or Zuckuss would show up in this based on the outcome of that comic. So that leaves us with Bosk, followed by Dengar as the next potential. Another bounty hunter that could make some sense with a connection to Boba would be Razzie. The Smuggler's Guide details that she started her own syndicate, which was at odds with the Pyke Syndicate. So there's definitely some bad blood between her and the Pikes, and with the existing relationship with Boba. However, there is a quote from the guide that says that Boba Fett noted that none of them had ever found out what exactly became of her. So if that last line is all we have to go on for Razzie, it doesn't sound like she'll be making an appearance anytime soon. Now the big one, and one of my personal favorites that I would love to have on the show, is obviously Cad Bane. Cad Bane recently got brought into the Bad Batch. I think it was a cool moment for fans of that show. Cad Bane and Boba didn't have much of a relationship in the Clone Wars. They have a brief run-in while they're in prison together, but really outside of some unfinished story arcs, that's it. In the Bad Batch, Cad Bane and Fennec both get paid to retrieve Omega as their bounty, so they have a fight between the two of them as well. Again, with bounty hunters, no hard feelings, I would imagine, but there's definitely probably no love lost between the two of them. But if Cad Bane is going to show up in the Book of Boba, my best guess is he will be hired by the Pyke Syndicate to help them out. And the reason why I think of that is because the unfinished arc of the Clone Wars, we have the story where Boba and Cad Bane face off in a Western-style standoff, with them both shooting each other. And with Dave Filoni as executive producer on the show, one would think he would do everything in his power to make one of those unfinished storylines he wanted to see come to life in some other medium, and this seems like a perfect setup and situation for it. Now, what's the likelihood on actually seeing Cad Bane? We did just see him in the Bad Batch. So the question is, do we want to keep the Cad Bane train rolling and jump him into live action? Or is Cad Bane kind of being saved for further seasons of the Bad Batch, and that's going to be the Star Wars property he plays in? I would love to see it, but Cad Bane showing up in live action is one I'm a little more skeptical of. And then the last potential candidate, and this one is out there, wild card, would be Hondo. And the reason why I say Hondo, because Hondo loves to be paid. He has a relationship with Boba.
Sorry about your father. He was a friend and an honorable man.
And if he did come, Hondo would potentially bring an army of pirates with him. So he would be a costly one for Boba to pay to come, but Hondo would definitely tip the scales in getting a lot of muscle. This would be a cool way to bring Hondo to live action, and just like the Trandoshans, they do have Weequays already on this show, so to create Hondo, take one of those existing costumes and kind of Jack Sparrow it up. So to wrap up, if Vegas had odds on which characters would be making cameos in the back half of the Book of Boba, I'd be taking my money to the counter and laying a massive bet on Din Djarin, followed up with a couple smaller bets on Cobb Vanth and Bosk. I think those three have a really good chance of appearing on this show. Let me know in the comments, who do you think is going to show up, and I can't wait to find out in a couple weeks. Peace out, everybody. Have a good night.